Kick things. Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. This evening, we are covering three topics. We're covering capital campaigns, planned giving, and stewardship and generosity. And of course, within 75 minutes, there's no way we would be able to cover all three in the level of detail we would like. But as we try to do, this is really about exposing and quickly introducing you to members of the Metropolis Orthodox Parish leadership team. And we are always available for conversations and follow-up conversations and assistance. So please just view this as a very quick introduction to these topics, but a dialogue that we certainly will welcome to continue to assist your parishes. Your Eminence, as always, thank you for joining us this evening. We know that we're talking about how wonderful and successful the Clergy Laity Congress was, and it's wonderful to have you here with us.
Thank you, Steve. I was very surprised because I was expecting, because I was not involved in the first level of the Clergy Laity Congress. Many people were involved. Many good Christians were involved. And I was expecting people to complain. Yeah, we are complaining people usually. So far, I have not heard any kind of complaint, and I'm thanking God for that. Let us pray. Master, rich in mercy, Lord Jesus Christ, in your goodness and love for us, look upon these prayers we offer you this evening and make them acceptable to you. Forgive us our sins, shelter us under the spread of your wings, and drive far from us every evil and hostility. Fill our lives with your peace, and have mercy on this world of yours and on us, and save our souls, for you are good and full of love for mankind. Amen. Again, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Orthodox Parish Leadership Ministry series. We may be in the middle of the summer, but from the number that I see here, you would think that we're in the middle of the winter. Everybody's attentive. That's wonderful. I know these topics are great interest to all of you and your parishes, and I know that this evening's presentation will provide tremendous value to you, hopefully going forward. Again, I wish to thank the Steves, as we call it, Steve Tips and Steve Papas, for their efforts in planning this year's ministry series and for assembling such a wonderful team of presenters to cover the topics of stewardship, parish planned giving, and capital campaigns. These are all extremely relevant to our communities and are also intertwined with each one because a strong stewardship program and investment in a parish can cultivate parishioners with their long-term legacy gifts to the community. At the same time, it is important for our parishioners to learn how they can manage and support both an active and vibrant stewardship program while at the same time leading a capital campaign. Those things are connected. One does not and should not compete with the other. This is a matter of education, of messaging, of vision, and of prayer and commitment to the effort that is being planned. Please know that we could not do this without you, our faithful parishioners and parish leaders. It is because of you that we continue to grow and improve, because the ministries do not improve, are presented to us unless we put our faith behind it. I know that both Steve Tips and Steve Papas would welcome your input into future topics, and it would be also beneficial for us all to hear from you about the progress of these efforts at the parish level, at the organic level, as we call it, what we can do to assist and how we can be able to provide further guidance and direction to you and for you. I also wish to thank Christina Miches and Melpomeni Mardakis for participating this evening. Christina has been a faithful leader of her parish of the Assumption in Seattle, and Melpo is a newer member of our Archdiocese team dedicated to parish planned giving. You will find both of these women to be exceptional in their offerings, and I thank them. Always my gratitude to my brother, priest, and friend, Father Jim Cordaris, for being attentive and always attentive to this with us. So my gratitude to all of you for joining this evening. I will stay with you as long as I can. I have a couple more things to do towards at the end of the day, of the hour, but I will stay here as long as I can. Thank you, and may God continue to bless you always, and you have a very wonderful and beautiful summer. If I don't see you in the highways and the byways of our metropolis and our archdiocese. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Please stay as long as you can, but we certainly understand the demands that you have. So thank you for joining us. Steve Tibbs also will need to leave. He is going to be jumping in with another one of our fellow parishes at the top of the hour. So we will get started here as soon as possible. His Eminence did a beautiful job of the introductions of Melpo and Christina. So we can jump right into the topics. We'll do this. We'll cover capital campaigns first. Steve will have to leave, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to field any questions. We're going to get into planned giving. Very excited for those of you that were not at Clergy Lady Congress and saw the launch of the just incredible work that Melpo and the team have done. Just beautiful, beautiful resources for planned giving. So excited for all of you to see that. And then Christina Mijas, who, God bless Christina. As many of you who've joined us for a while knew that I was leading the stewardship ministry. This year, as we launched Orthodox Parish Leadership, Christina has taken the torch and will continue to, given the great work that she's doing at Assumption and helping other parishes, will be the lead within the Orthodox Parish Leadership team for stewardship and generosity. So with that, Steve, if I can turn it over to you. I don't know if you want to say just a couple words on OPL itself, and then we can get into the capital campaigns. And Steve, if you're
Let
there.
me unmute myself. There we go.
There we go.
I followed your directions, Steve, to mute myself at the beginning. So
Thank you.
Anyway, nice to see you all. Thank you for joining tonight. I won't go too deeply into the Orthodox Parish leadership, but basically it's a ministry of our metropolis. We've been doing work supporting our parishes and ministries for coming on to 12 years now. But this year we did a very significant expansion of the team. So we're now eight strong, and Steve, Malpo, Christina are all members of that team. And we have a number of offerings, three of which we'll see tonight. And we have someone aligned to that. That will be the lead for that offering. So it's a wonderful team. God has certainly blessed us with the right people at the right time, I believe. So we're in the process of developing some infrastructure, developing websites, approaches, that sort of thing. We've launched a leadership development program that we're piloting in the metropolis with 13 of our parishes to look at materials and give us feedback. So all good in that regard. And with the blessings of His Eminence, we will continue to do this work to help our parishes, our ministries. What I'd like to talk about tonight is capital campaign. As Steve mentioned, I apologize. I will have to step off in a few minutes. I do have a parish level call working on their strategic plan. But typically the capital campaign would come at the end of this, but because of time, we'll move it up front. You're going to hear throughout all the presentations this terminologies of first fruits, spiritual giving, creating a culture of generosity. And I know Melpo and Christina will be very well versed to talk about those. So I'm not going to bring those up, but know that those notions of generosity, spiritual giving, for getting back first fruits underpin all of the capital campaign. And I'm going to be very direct. You have more slides that I'm going to go through. Since you are going to have access to the slides, I wanted to make sure that you will be able to look at some additional slides with information following my presentation. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Stephen, go to the next slide. So by definition, and the materials and plans and approaches are woven around the notion of a significant element inside of the parish. So what do I mean by that? Well, you can do fundraising for a youth program, for outreach, for a particular cause. That happens all the time in our parishes. And while that isn't being specifically identified as one of the three we'll talk about today, just know that fundraising and those elements of generosity and spiritual giving permeate all those as well. We're talking about capital campaigns. We're talking about significant projects inside of a parish. Could be new construction of a hall or a new church. Could be significant renovation of existing facilities. Could be a relocation to a new site. Could be major maintenance and repairs. As you know, many of our parishes are challenged by deferred maintenance, and we get to a point where, in some cases, one parish I'm working with right now, that those renovation costs run into the millions of dollars, which require a significant capital campaign. It could be asset acquisition, buying additional properties for future growth, or in some cases, buying local homes for rental income. Or in one case, a few weeks back, I was talking to a parish that they want to eliminate all their debt. They've had some prior programs. They've been carrying this debt for a period of time, and now's the time just to eliminate that. So a campaign will be put together for that. But again, the key element of this is these are significant events inside of a parish. Next slide, Steve. So why worry about a capital campaign approach? Well, the why behind this, why we want to do this, is to meet the needs of the project. It requires a well-constructed approach, and a plan is vital to support the significant development efforts. That's why you need it. What is it? Well, I'm going to show you some elements of that will best position your campaign for success, and then also show you how we can help. If we go to the next slide, and I'm just going to go right into lessons learned. If you look at the lessons learned, and I've had a chance to do quite a few capital campaigns, there are kind of two buckets that these lessons fall into. And the first group are foundational elements. And those foundational elements really are the basis. And I don't like using the term successful per se in church work, but these lead to the fulfillment of or the meeting of the church's goals. And the first one is a faith and trust in God. If we don't have the faith and trust in God in any of those other elements, we need to stop there and ask ourselves, why are we doing this? Because everything that we do on our church campus, not just in the sanctuary, but everywhere, belongs to God. We are in God's embassy. And from that perspective, we have to make sure that we are tending his field in a way that will return the gifts that are given to him. Asking, praying for guidance, praying for discernment to make the right decision, and allowing the Holy Spirit to really guide the efforts is the most fundamental and important element of any campaign program. The next one is vision over money. If we're going out to get the money, we will probably fail. Father Barnabas Powell says, you don't have a money issue, we have a vision issue. And creating that compelling vision of why we're doing what we're doing is extremely important. And without that, people will be lost in their giving. So it's not going after the money. The money will follow if we believe in God, if we have the right basis, and we have the right vision that we're communicating. It's also a spiritual, not a transactional opportunity. And it's a spiritual opportunity, not for you and me. It's a spiritual opportunity for that person that's going to be donating the money. Because that's between them and God. And we are doing nothing more than laying that opportunity so they can lay their gifts on the altar in front of God. That's the significant. And by the way, if any of you are involved in capital campaigns have had those conversations with people, you'll probably notice that many times a tear is shed. It is so touching and meaningful for these gifts. And that leads into the next one, which is the widow's mite. We all know the story behind this, but sometimes we forget about it, that we're going after the big money in capital campaigns, and that is entirely wrong. There's no gift too small. Everyone is to be totally and completely respected and thanked for their gifts, no matter the amount. And in many cases, with the widow's mite, she suffered and gave from her poverty, not from her wealth. So those are the foundational elements that need to be focused on and make sure are nurtured throughout the campaign. But there is a programmatic element as well. And those four areas, number one is program excellence. If you're doing a capital campaign, there is an expectation that you're going to have program excellence, that you're going to know where the money goes. You're going to be able to report on it, that you're going to be writing reports that are accurate and sending out thank you cards promptly and correctly. If you build confidence and that confidence is repeated over a period of time, then the behavior is predictable, and then you have trust. If you do not have trust, people will not give, or they will give at a lower level because they're not confident. They can't predict how their funds are going to be utilized, which gets into transparency. The next one is understand that you're all going to be, if you're in a capital campaign, part of this incredible journey of connecting and talking with people that you never would have even thought you'd contact, or you were going to be creating actually a bond with these individuals. As I mentioned, sometimes a tear is shed. I've had conversations where someone said, I had a dream last night that I was going to be the one that gave this amount of money. And you have to totally accept that and thank God for that. Nonstop communication in the program. Tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them, and tell them one more time. As a matter of fact, when a parish says, okay, we've got it, tell them again. Because we live in a world we have to kind of break through that communications clutter. So it's that nonstop communications that's important. And one last learning, it takes longer than you think it's going to take. We all think we're going to launch a program and all of a sudden we're going to have all these commitments. It just takes a long time to create the materials, to have the messaging, those sort of things. So we have our foundational elements, then we have our programmatic elements working all together. If you go to the next slide, Steve, and we've been taught this, and if you look at the building of Solomon's temple, King David and his son Solomon, I'm not going to go through the whole story, you probably know it, but basically David was going to rebuild the temple, wasn't allowed to, but what did he do? He did all the preparation, had the design, donated his own wealth, and through that, matter of fact, in 1 Chronicles 22:6, it says, then the leaders of families, the officers of the tribes of Israel, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, and the officials in charge of the king's work gave willingly when they saw that what the temple plan was, and King David's commitment to that. And that's what our leaders need to do as well. Now, there's all kinds of dialogue on how you can communicate that and that sort of thing. That's for another time as we get into the planning. But with that, the blueprint was created. If you go to the next slide, there's three elements that fundamentally drive a capital campaign. 3 phases: preparation phase, the campaign phase, and the follow-up. When I work with parishes, more times than not, almost every time, people want to go right to the campaign phase and do solicitation of the entire parish. And that is a mistake. When Solomon became the building chairman, if you will, because the plans and the wealth were already flowing. But it takes time to get to that element. On the preparation phase, to go to the next slide, Steve, and I'm not going to go drain all these for you, but the preparation phase takes 1 to 3, 1 to 4 months of really focused effort. And key to that is, identifying the scope, identifying the why, making it very clear, conducting a feasibility study, looking at past campaigns, looking at the potential for giving, which, by the way, is non-scientific. We think it might be, but it's not, because we'll always be surprised in this process because God's hand is guiding this. You're going to build a capital campaign team. You're going to build your communications plan, your collateral materials, those sort of things. So you can see there's quite a bit in that preparation phase. You're going to have a building team in place as well that you're going to be working very closely with, which typically sits outside of the capital campaign team, but works very closely with it. If you go to the next slide, then the next phase is one element of the preparation also is building the team. This team could be one person. This team could be 12 people. Depends on the scope, the magnitude. I've seen very large teams, and I've seen teams of 2 people running very large campaigns. So you're going to have that overall program lead. You're going to have a campaign office. You're going to have somebody responsible for donor management, arranging schedules, meetings, donor letters, thank yous, those sort of things. You have somebody that's going to be creating collateral material, marketing, communications, website presence, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're going to have somebody that's managing all the finances to make sure that the funds that are coming in many times is not the treasurer of the parish, but will work in concert as a checks and balance with the treasurer. So the team is going to be built during this process as well, and with very defined processes. Again, predictability builds trust. Okay, next slide then. Then we look at the campaign. The campaign can take anywhere from 2 to 60 months. It's got 3 phases in it, 3 subphases: a quiet phase, a targeted phase, and a public phase. As I mentioned, many teams want to go right to that public phase. Well, the public phase, just to let you know, is going to raise probably about 10% of the total amount. That's the kind of the tail end of the fundraising. Could be 20%, but it's going to take about 80% of your effort. The quiet phase, that lead phase, is going to garner about 60 to 75% of the total funds necessary for the project. And there are little triggers that we can look at when we determine whether we go from a quiet phase to a targeted phase, which is kind of that intermediate giver. And there's a variety of techniques and approaches for each one of those groups. And then the final slide here. Go one more slide, Steve. Final phase is follow-up. This has a tail. Many people give donations over a 3 to 5 year window. That's got to be tracked. Communications need to go out during that period of time as well. I usually try to recommend that campaigns don't go beyond 3 years if at all possible, but we'll respect the wishes of the donors. All this is total up is in terms of our program management office. For the next slide is to create at a glance campaign dashboard. This is an actual one from a parish that was created. They're all a little bit different, but for the most part, this captures all of the things that are necessary for a capital campaign, and allows not only the project team, but the capital campaign team to keep track, but also this is a good communications tool as well to inform the parish. And with that, take a breath. How can we help? Well, there's 3 ways we can help. One is this advisory support. It'd be like a session like this with maybe a little bit more detail for your campaign team. Kind of get the team going, and then step out. And if there's any questions along the way, I'd make myself available for those questions. The second role is kind of a consulting role, which is advisor plus maybe taking on a few of the project elements, maybe working with the communications lead, maybe working with the interaction of the building team and the capital campaign team. Could be the training of what I call ambassadors, who are the individuals that are actually going out and asking for the donations, things like that. So there's very specific, point-specific development activities, but the team is really managing itself. And the third element then is what sometimes people would think of as, capital campaign manager that's going to come in, project manager that's actually going to run the campaign. No campaign is run outside of the parish. It is always jointly with parish leadership. But this would be someone that would come on and actually become very integrated into the community and with the leadership team to actually develop materials, provide guidance, provide training, and that sort of thing. Again, not to supersede the team, but to support it from within. And with that, that was your quick run through on capital campaigns. Hopefully this jogged some ideas, and I'll be certainly happy to answer any questions. If anybody wants to contact me, be happy to talk to you about these things.
So there's nothing in the chat, but if anyone has a question for Steve, he only has a minute or two before he needs to jump to his next call. But feel free to come off of mute if you've got a question. I'll just reiterate what Steve said. The capital campaign that we did in my home parish, that preparation, which also includes, deep engagement, really winning the hearts and minds of the parish as you're about to undertake this very, very significant event in the parish's life. And then in the quiet period of, being able to identify and find some of the most generous people with the means within your community to set the tone for the capital campaign was absolutely critical to the success of the campaign. So are there any questions? Oh, we got something in the chat.
I do have a question. This is Irene Miletus, and I was curious how many parishes actually rely on an outside resource or consultant to manage the campaign or support the campaign?
Good question. I don't have that exact number. I would say if I look at our metropolis, it's probably about 50-50 ish. It all depends on the skill set within the parish. There are tremendous examples. I've actually spoke to Father Chris Lasaurus at Clergy Laity. I refer people to his website. If you look at what they've done, they did a tremendous job. And, thinking about it now, I'm going to make that probably closer to 60 to 70% actually have some sort of outside resource because although I was not involved, I do know that there are some other groups that have come in and helped. So it's probably going to be in that 60 to 70% level.
And do you have a list compiled of who they use? I'm just curious.
For the most part, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I know, Steve, you needed to drop. There's a question also on what's a rule of thumb before you break ground, and I think that the question there is both pledges as well as monies collected. How far along in the capital campaign should you be before you really commit the parish to a very significant?
Well, the kind of the standard, kind of the school answer on that is about 75% of the funds collected. So, if you're, and that seems daunting to some parishes to think that they have to collect that much money, but there's one fallacy, if you will, that if it's being built, then people will come forward with money. Actually, what I've seen is just the inverse. That once it's being built, people assume that you have enough money or you have a line of sight to pay for it. So yes, you will get some trailing donations, absolutely. But don't expect if you're at the 30% level of cash on hand and you're going to do a $5 million or a $10 million project, that late monies will sustain you. For the most part, we've seen that it does not.
Okay, great. Steve, I don't want to make you late. I know you'll have others waiting for you. I thank you.
Thank
feel
you.
free to put any other questions in the chat. I'll field as many as I can, and then we can save some, and Steve can get back. We can get back to you on
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and we've got two exceptional resources that I know you're waiting to hear from on topics that are just awesome. So Malpo and Christina, thank you for that. And with that, I'll have to step off and thank you for the opportunity to talk about this.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Thanks for me.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. I know there's a few questions in the chat. I'm going to get to them once I get Melpo kicked off. So as we said at the beginning here, Melpo Murdakis from the Archdiocese, but we've also kind of grabbed her a bit to be on the OPL team from a planned giving standpoint. So she's going to share with you the recently launched with Father Jim Corderas, the parish plan giving. I think at the very beginning, if I can also encourage everyone, I'm going to put a few links in the chat. If you were not able to get to San Diego to make clergy laity, many have been recorded on YouTube, the ministry panels, the workshops, this parish plan giving release. So I would encourage you to go to the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese YouTube channel and find some of the live events that have been recorded. Just some tremendous amount of information. So again, I'll try to put that link in the chat when I get to that. All right. So Melpo,
Great.
share us the great work.
Thank you, Steve. Well, flip on to my slide and we'll walk through a similar. I want to just start with the Parish Plan Giving Initiative was really seeded at the 2022 Clergy Laity Congress in New York. It was really seen as a timely offering that the Archdiocese wanted to provide for parishes. And so what we've launched at Clergy Laity 2024 is really a result of that early planting that has been cultivated. So with the next slide, we'll go through the same kind of why, what, and how. We really want to be able to talk about why planned giving through a dedicated endowment is really essential for the health and longevity of your parish. We want to talk about the pieces that will really best position you and your parish for success and how we can be a resource to help. And we'll talk about some of the pieces that are accessible to you. The next slide, Steve. Parish planned giving really is the one-time offering of the first fruits of our wealth. Steve Tibbs mentioned the first fruits, and really we talk about first fruits often in stewardship, that it is our first offering to Christ. It is our thanks and our offering of generosity. Planned giving is very similar in the same way, but it is of our lifetime wealth or of a particular significant gain, that it is a way that we can offer something back to the parish. So we want to talk a little bit about the value of planned giving as a tool. Steve? So one, it's a chance to reflect our faith and values. If we think about what we leave behind as our legacy, if we are tithers of our parish, do we have the opportunities to be tithers of our estate? And maybe perhaps we can't be from an income standpoint, but we do have that opportunity within our estate. What message does that leave? What opportunity is that to continue to reflect our faith and values through our legacy and the model that we give for our heirs? It expands our giving capacity. Oftentimes, as I said, for many of us, our income, our ability to give of greater significance may not be as much during our earning years, but as we think about retirement plans, insurance policies, our acquired wealth, we may in fact be able to give more significantly. And through a planned gift, we have agency over our assets. We all know there are things, there's taxation and expenses, other pieces, but by taking and having a thoughtful planned gift in place, and particularly remembering our parish, it really does allow us to have some agency over that going forward. So what are the ways to give? And these next two slides that we're going to share really are kind of the mechanics of planned giving. And oftentimes these programs get kind of caught up in that. But I want to highlight just a couple of points on the next two slides. So Steve, just to talk about a couple of the things that we've got. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yep. So one of the things, if you look at all the different ways to give, from beneficiary designations, gift of property and real estate, I want to highlight here that about more than 80% of gifts are bequests. So it is an indication through one's will of a portion of the estate or a particular gift amount left. And so the simplicity of that is really one of the key drivers. The other, beneficiary designations. Someone may choose to leave a life insurance policy they no longer need, or their tax-deferred retirement assets. I actually spoke to a gentleman at Clergy Laity who has taken out life insurance policies for the parishes and organizations within the Orthodox Church that he wants to leave planned gifts to. So that was actually an intentional gift above and beyond. So there's some really creative ways, but I want to just focus on that simplicity. You don't need to be a complex financial expert to provide this kind of program for your parishioners, but simply a means to invite them to consider this opportunity. And the next slide, we'll just talk about some of the vehicles that are available to your parishioners right now that may in fact be of benefit to them while they're still living. Charitable trusts, lead and remainder trusts, IRA rollover distributions, and particularly appreciated assets. Someone may have come into a significant amount of capital through the sale of property or the sale of a business or an inheritance, and they have the opportunity not only to benefit from capital gains tax breaks, but just to be able to offer first fruits from those gains. But how do they do that? What's the way those gifts get managed? Well, that's through an endowment. Steve, we go to the next slide, please. An endowment is a dedicated fund managed under the parish and the parish council that helps steward planned and direct gifts for the long-term security of the parish and for short-term impact. And we want to talk about the way it works in both capacities. On the next slide, please. Thank you. So the principle of those gifts remains intact. And that's the beauty of these gifts going to an endowed fund versus to the operating budget, because they won't spend out very quickly, but the principle will remain for the long-term security of the parish. However, once it begins to generate earnings, and we talk about different scales of when percentage of earnings can be distributed, those can be directed toward parish programs for extraordinary ministries, extraordinary projects or programs, and extraordinary philanthropy. The terms here that we use, ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary, think about the things within your budget that are part of your operating. So you may have certain youth programs that are set, certain educational programs that are set. But what an endowment allows you to support are things like, for example, my home parish of St. Mary's in Minneapolis, this year we're seeding an extraordinary new ministry program, and we're seeding it for 3 years on a declining scale so that it can then fold into the operating budget. But it's a chance to really do something above and beyond operating, because we've had these funds that have been left and endowed and earned for the parish to do such extraordinary things. So let's talk about the value of an endowment itself. Thank you, Steve. So again, it is securing that principle that you're not spending it down immediately, that it does have that lasting and enduring ability to support the parish. But it's compounding gift values. So if each of us on here, I think there were 89 people registered at last count. If everybody put $100 into an account, you're going to generate some interest. If we put $8,900 together, the growth in earnings compound. And so that's really the significance of that. Likewise, by setting what your parish goals are going to be, Steve talked about vision, and an endowment really does reflect, is an opportunity to reflect the vision of the parish in terms of what are those priorities? What are those extraordinary things that the endowment will support? And so you have the opportunity to reflect the values and the vision of the parish. And that then really provides your parishioners that sense of understanding that their intent will be fulfilled, that when they make a planned gift in their estate at whatever point in time, they understand that many years down the line, when that gift may come to fruition, they know the values and vision that will be supported by that, regardless of what's happening in the parish at that time. So that really is a way to preserve that donor intent. So why is this important now? Why are we really talking about this now? And it is such a timely opportunity. In the next 20 plus years, $84 trillion will be transferred generationally from baby boomers to the next generation. It's a tremendous shift in wealth. And so as we think about opportunities for those donors and the beneficiaries of those inheritances, to think about the way they want to give and then the organizations they want to support, we want to tap into a couple of things here. Only 46% of the population has a will right now. And so the real opportunity is to begin to think about not only preparing for our ultimate salvation upon our passing, but what will happen? How will our gifts and what we leave behind be stewarded? And a proper will, a proper estate plan allows us to do that. And as my friend Bill Marianis would say, if you don't have a will, you do, because The top tax rate is 40% at the federal level, and that's for an estate of $1 million plus. And so without that will, you're automatically reducing that estate by at least 40%. So we want to just talk about this as a real opportunity, again, to have agency over the wealth that parishioners have worked hard for, the legacy they want to pass on to their children or to the organizations and to the organizations they care about. But yet, only 6% of individuals right now of the population have a planned gift in place. So the opportunity is really prime for us to extend this invitation to our parishioners. And believe me, with these kind of statistics out there, if you're not asking and inviting your parishioners to consider the parish, other institutions are, from colleges and universities to social service agencies, healthcare. Everyone is on this bandwagon right now. And it's just an important way for us to think about it in terms of stewardship for our parishioners. Let's go to the next slide. And I'm just going to touch on that very quickly because I want to hit those final ones. These just give you a little statistics about when the average will is written, percentage that make planned gifts. So just the idea that it isn't just for our senior population, it really is something to be considered early on. But I want to spend some time on these next two slides, Steve, because as we've talked about this, really, we're talking about capital campaigns, planned giving, and stewardship. And one of the educational components we want to talk about here is how they align. So if we look at our total giving as Orthodox Christian stewards, our annual stewardship, what we offer as the first fruits of our income, really provides for the annual operating of our parish. It provides for how we continue to fulfill the ministries and live out our mission of the church. Major gifts are what we're time-bound offerings of a more significant capacity that speak to the capital projects and campaigns that Steve Tibbs walked through. They're really, again, 3 to 5 years. It is in addition to stewardship, but it is for a very specific campaign purpose. Planned giving, as we mentioned, is the one-time offering of our wealth or gain. And it goes to the endowment, again, to provide for that long-term security and short-term impact through those extraordinary offerings. So again, all three work in concert. And if we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about how the fact that they do not capitalize or cannibalize one another, they actually can enrich one another. So what's popular among a number of educational institutions, and my background is in educational and faith-based fundraising, the comprehensive model is really the significant one right now, where a parish or a school may be choosing to do a capital effort and also inviting parishioners to consider a planned gift. But they also look at the role their stewardship plays in it. So a great example might be, for the course of the 3 years of the campaign, we invite parishioners to increase their stewardship by 10%, to make a major gift commitment to whatever the capital or special project is, and at the same time, consider a planned gift. And that planned gift, remember, does not have to affect their immediate income or affect them during their lifetime, but it is something beyond. But it is one invitation with lasting impact. And what you will find is that those who make planned gifts increase their stewardship and increase their capital support. So these are things that are really, we don't need to be worried about, oh, if we ask for this, they're going to decline their stewardship. No, in fact, people are more invested than ever. And so they will increase it. So I think those are just important things to remember. So what do you need to position your parish for success in a planned giving program? We talked to about 35 parishes that have existing programs to say, what are the lessons learned? What advice would you offer? What's important to get started? And the 4 key things are vision, which we've talked about, to make sure that it really isn't about the dollars, but it's about the vision and fulfilling that for the parish. Leadership, diverse leadership, having succession plans. And then it's about having the plan in place, the policies, the procedures, all of those things, so that as the fund grows, you're not building the plane as you fly. And finally, ensuring that it fits. And this is one of those pieces where we talk about sort of recognition policy and other things. The culture of your parish, you may have memorial boards. Others don't choose to do that. So you really have the opportunity to reflect it. So what are the resources we provide to help your parish establish a planned giving program with a dedicated endowment? What we launched, and we can jump over, are some tangible resources that hit on each of the three phases of a planned giving program: establishing it, setting the vision and the governance, advancing it, raising awareness and funds, and having it flourish, growing the gifts and the grants. So we've created 2 guidebooks, a quick start guide and a full guide. We've got templates for some of the fundamental documentation and policies that help give you a little bit of a jump start. We have videos that will talk about some of the specific key elements. And then we also offer coaching. So similar to what Steve said, the Archdiocese is offering this to parishes. So we can come out and meet with your leadership team to help you get started or help you advance or flourish your program. So you'll have the next 2 slides that give you a QR code to get to the online versions of both guidebooks, as well as any of the other templates on our Parish Planned Giving website on the Archdiocese. So again, I just want to thank you for being a part of this, and really just thank the OPL team for the fact that this really does align so well: capital campaigns, stewardship, and Parish Planned Giving. And I'll leave you with this last prompt. Remember your own parish in your estate plan. And if you have, be sure that your parish knows. And if you haven't, just think about what has been your own hesitation, or what are some of the reasons why maybe you haven't. And that's a good starting point for thinking about how to get your own program started. So with that, Steve, well, if there's any questions, I'm happy to, I'll be on throughout. But I thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Melpo, for joining. And I know they're in the central time zone, so I know it's a bit later for you. The material, everyone, there's the QR code. I'll try to paste the link here. Also, the materials are just phenomenal. If you go to the Archdiocese website at geoarch. Sorry, where am I? Not gov.
.org.
.org, and you'll find the resources. But if you go to the link again, you can hit the QR code, or you can go to this particular link. And again, I'll try to copy it into the chat. You can see the guidebook. There's a quick start guide. This is a real opportunity that parishes. It's a service to the individuals themselves, to make sure that they are thinking about the future and the future security of the church. And I think for many of us, again, making sure that a place for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. So again, the materials are absolutely fantastic. And nothing in the chat, but any questions from the group here? You can come off of mute and ask Melpo any questions you may have.
Yes, Steve, this is Deacon Danilo in Reno. I have a question.
Yes, Deacon Danilo, good to see you.
Good, better seeing you. Thank you. Melpo, I saw your presentation at the CLC. It was very good, and this is kind of a reprise of that. In your experience, could you share with us perhaps one of the single biggest consequences or factors in executing a program like this, an endowment program, that, and I'm thinking of things like consequences. I would imagine, I was just wondering if you ever experienced where you start a program like this and you notice that stewardship contributions diminish. Can you share anything with us?
Well, it's interesting. So a great question, because that is always the hesitancy. If we're going to put our effort here, will stewardship wane? As I indicated, statistics and research have shown that when you promote planned giving, you also end up benefiting from a gain in stewardship. But it's important, and one of the reasons to address that concern, that's why we created the 3-element guide to talk about the 3 ways of supporting our parish, kind of the holistic stewardship model, because it's important not to talk about any of these in a vacuum. Otherwise, we do sort of create that sense of competition. And the idea is that this is a holistic way of considering how we support our parish and how we exercise our Orthodox Christian stewardship. It's really an opportunity. And so that would be one of the key things for that. The other element really is having the endowment established, that fund that simply has some priorities that fulfill the vision, so that a donor, a prospective parishioner who says, I'm going to leave a percentage, I'm going to leave a tithe of my estate to the parish. Well, if they establish their will at the average age of 45, God willing, they have many decades before that gift comes to fruition. By having an established endowment fund, they know how those funds will be managed financially, how the earnings will be given, how it will be led and governed. And that goes on in perpetuity. It's managed under the parish council, but having that outline and all of that governance in place really provides some comfort and assurance to those parishioners that their gift will have an enduring impact and they'll understand what the value is. So I would say that discussing the three elements of giving and having the established endowment fund are two of the key essentials. And probably the third element would be that piece of vision that talks about it. SCOBA, Steve mentioned vision over finance. And we talk about this in the guidebook because SCOBA did a study in 2015, the Council of Orthodox Bishops, and giving increases significantly when we talk about mission and vision over dollars and budgets and money. And it really is about inspiring, as Steve Pappas just mentioned, this is about preserving our parish. We have generations that built churches, generations that have expanded and enriched it, and endowments provide that future in a way that allows us to be a part of it.
Excellent. Thank you, Deacon Danilo. Any other questions for Melpo? And then Father Jim, actually, not to put you on the spot, but I know that you've helped shepherd us here and bringing Melpo on. And, you've also led previous planned giving programs. If you want to share some perspectives or thoughts on this recently released set of resources.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. This supersedes everything we've done before. We did a good effort about 10 years ago, but if you go online, make sure you go to the website that's shown on the screen now. Don't get confused by the old plan because this completely supersedes everything. We did a long search for the right person, thanks to Ruth Stencio in HR and Elaine and our chairman, Bill Spell, Elaine Allen, our chairman, Bill Spell. And thank God Melpo was available. She hit the ground running on January 1st, and she had the orders to be prepared for clergy lady, and she made it with some excellent materials. As you can see, we found the right person, and all I'm trying to do is open doors and let her run because she's got it down. So I hope you'll all take advantage of this. And this, as she said, and I'll reiterate, this is for the parish. This is what the Archdiocese wants to push back down in value to the parishes for your security. And Bill Spell, the church chairman, always loves to say, just think if 20 years from now we have hundreds of parishes that have $1 million or more in an endowment, we'll have changed the face of the entire Archdiocese. And so that's really our view, is to really change that feeling of scarcity to one of abundance. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Jim. Again, I'll just share kind of experiences of my own home parish, and a couple, even without a planned giving program, yet a couple very significant gifts that people on their own had remembered the church, and why putting a more organized planned giving program is so important. We've all been blessed in so many ways, and I think Bill in the chat put, a major gift defined as a $10,000 donation. $10,000 is a lot of money when we're trying to pay the bills and, make ends meet. But when we've been blessed and lived a life where we've been able to, build something. We certainly want to take care of our families, but even a small portion going to the church can be a very significant number when we think of the estates that we've been able to build, really on the shoulders of our, again, parents and grandparents, right, that came to the country with very little. So critically important program here, and we're here within the Orthodox Parish Leadership Team to assist in getting as many parishes to be able to get such a program going in your parish if you don't already. I think one of the things that Milpo didn't have the chance to do here, just given the time constraint too, is that it really does. We talk about needing a village, but this is a village of professionals also that you'll need to find and tap into, financial professionals, estate attorneys, others that can really help you through this. So again, if you're thinking and prepared to launch such a program, reach out to Melpo, reach out to any of us, and you can begin. It won't happen overnight. You won't have it quite ready, within the next month or so. But if you're looking to maybe get it going in 2025, now would be the time to start to plan and prepare and start to communicate to the parish. Okay. If there aren't any other questions, we've got about 15 minutes before we need to close. So Christina, because I've been trying to do my best to man the chat as well as advance slides, good old Zoom seems to have pushed out a newer release of their tool here. So I saw remote control. So Christina, I'm going to try to give you a remote control. Everyone, if you could just be patient, we're going to see if this actually works or not. So let's see. Zoom would like to control this computer.
I just clicked on something, so.
You want to hit an arrow key and see if you advance the.
Yeah, no, that didn't work though.
I think I may have to do something in settings. Hang on a second. I'll have to.
It says I can control your screen, but it's not.
I need to give you. I'm in settings right now, so let that happen. Okay, I'm gonna close my settings down. Want to give it a try? Just a arrow.
No.
What screen do you see, Christina? Do you see the presenter screen?
I do. I see my full screen is the stewardship and generosity.
Okay. Well, we'll try this.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, you went backwards. So maybe a little bit late. See, so
okay.
All right, let's see if I can get back to the chat, get back to some folks.
Okay, so this is gonna be the turbo version of stewardship and generosity. So the goal for tonight is to first talk about why an effective stewardship ministry can transform your parish and the lives of your parishioners. We'll then talk about what elements will best position your stewardship ministry for success. And success is going to be transformation. And then how can the members of the Orthodox Parish Leadership Ministry support you? And we've heard a little bit about that from Melpo and Steve already. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I just want to read a series of statements to all of you about some spiritual practices that we often think of as transformational. We all need to pray more and focus on our spiritual lives. Whoop. We all need to fast more and be more disciplined in our lives. Well, Steve, we all need to, okay. We all need to be more loving, kinder, more compassionate, and more forgiving to everyone around us. And we all need to place Jesus Christ at the center of our lives before all else. So nothing about the first four there are probably too controversial. I think probably everybody would agree that we all could pray more. We could focus more on fasting, on being more loving and kinder and more compassionate and forgiving, and that we could all do more to place Jesus at the center of our lives. And then we come to the last one. We all need to give more money to the church, to those in need, to charities that reach out and help others. And I'm just wondering how that last statement resonates with you all compared to the first one. because we talk a lot about the other spiritual practices, and we talk about them all the time. But we don't necessarily talk about giving money in terms of that being a spiritual practice. And the interesting thing to note is that of all the themes that Jesus preached and taught, he talked more about riches and treasures and money than he did about the other such themes, such as prayer and fasting. Because he knew that the topic of money, and specifically good stewardship of all that we have and all that we have that comes from God, he knew that that was a spiritual topic, because Christ understood that where our treasure is, our heart will be also. So let's go to the next one. So stewardship is really about transformation. It's a spiritual practice where we're called by God to return to him the first fruits of our time, talent, and treasure. Giving is a response to spiritual growth and spiritual engagement. Generosity is learned. It doesn't just happen. So we have to teach people about how to be generous. And when our parishioners and our parish embrace giving first fruits, our church and its ministries will thrive as God intended. For those of you who attended clergy laity, I was struck by the discussion on the budgets. And it occurred to me that it really wasn't a money problem that we were discussing at clergy laity. It was a spiritual problem. That if our church in its entirety was tithing, we wouldn't be talking about money. We would have more than enough. And that's what God's plan is for our church. Next slide, Steve. So let's talk a little bit about what will position you for success. There's 15 culture practices of true Christian stewardship. And these are a la Bill Marianis's Igniting the Flame of True Christian Stewardship. And we don't have time to talk about all 15 of them tonight. So I'm gonna touch upon 4 of them. Melpo already talked about planned giving, but we're gonna talk about tithing. We're gonna talk about personal engagement. We're gonna talk about a team, and we're gonna talk about messaging. So let's talk about first building a team. So a stewardship ministry team, you usually have a chair. And because stewardship is a spiritual issue, the priest has to be involved. If we are going to help our parishioners understand that giving is a spiritual practice, that's something that they have to be hearing on Sundays. It's something that they have to be taught. And so the involvement of the priest in that is essential for the ministry to be successful. Ideally, your stewardship team would have someone who's in charge of the campaign, the welcome ministry. That's how we engage new members. That's how we get them involved in giving their time and their talent, is through the welcome ministry, small groups, somebody who's in charge of communications, youth stewardship. We cannot expect our young adults to magically start tithing or giving when they become adults. It's something that we have to talk about when they're young. An ambassador ministry, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Planned giving, it's important that planned giving and stewardship are working in concert with each other, as Melpo mentioned. Somebody who's tracking the data, and then, of course, thanking people when they do give their time and their talent. So let's talk about beginning to tithe. and the journey to tithing. Culturally, in our churches, we haven't really been talking about tithing. Our parishioners, in general, if they grew up in the Orthodox Church, didn't hear about tithing. And so what we've started in our parish, Bill Marianis again had recommended that you ask people to first start rounding up to the next whole percent of their income, to join us on this journey. And then every year you round up to the next whole percent. And this slide here illustrates the power of rounding up by 1% every year. And so when you're beginning the journey to tithing, what you would be asking people to do is to look at what percent of their income they're giving to the church and round up to the next whole percent of their income. So if they're giving 0.5%, they would round up to 1%. And then the next year you would ask them to round up to 2% and 3% until they get to 10% or beyond. And so that is the invitation as we're beginning this journey. The messaging around this is key because it's not just about asking people to begin the journey to tithing. It's helping them understand why. What is it about tithing? So using biblical references, the saints, and the way that you communicate to your parishioners is going to be key. So rather than talking about keeping the lights on, we want to let people know that we're giving to fulfill our mission. Our giving is centered around the mission of our church. Rather than money being scarce, it's the mindset of we may not be rich, but we have more than enough. On the one hand, we pay the bills if we are to survive, or we can dare to dream and grow in faith. You can be internally focused, or you can be externally and globally focused. The messaging can be, you must do your fair share, or partner and grow with us in faith. Stewardship can be about raising money, or stewardship can be about nurturing generosity and transforming lives. And of course, the messaging that we need to embrace is the messaging on the right-hand side. We need to share our mission and our vision with our parishioners and ask them to join us in the journey. So let's take a look at some ways that we can get that message out there. Henry Nouwen very poignantly said, fundraising is precisely the opposite of begging. Rather, we are declaring we have a vision that is amazing and exciting. And so what we need to figure out is, how do we share that mission and that vision with our parishioners so that people are excited about what's happening in our parish and so that they want to join us? So this is just one example that we've used in our parish. This is a report that we include in our stewardship brochure to show our parishioners all of the amazing things that we have done in the last year, to inspire them, to let them know how their generosity is affecting our community and affecting the world around us. Some other things that we do in our parish, we share testimonials. So on your left, I know you can't read that there, but this is the story of our priest and our presbytera. They shared their journey with their parish of where they are on the journey to tithing. So our priest, Father Dean, first shared it in a homily. We recorded that. It's on our website. And we also transcribed it and included it in our bulletin. So we're sharing these testimonials in every way that we can possibly imagine to get that word out there. And people will see and hear themselves in other people's stories, and it will inspire them to give. That's what we found. Because again, another little gem from Henry Nouwen, fundraising is proclaiming what we believe in such a way that we offer other people an opportunity to participate with us in our vision and our mission. And so true. On the right-hand side there, we've just got something in the bulletin that we included about a donation we made to Hawaii. Another example, this past Sunday in our parish, we were presenting a check to a nonprofit organization who was the recipient of 10% of the proceeds of our festival. And we could have just mailed the check to her, but instead, we invited her to join us on a Sunday. We presented the check to her in front of the entire parish, and we asked her to share with us the mission and the vision of her organization. The organization serves a couple of our own parishioners, so they were up there as well, sharing with our community how that organization impacted them. And the result of that was after the service ended, we had parishioners go up to her and ask if they could also make a donation to that organization. So what we're doing is we're teaching our parishioners how to be generous. Okay, and then the last thing that I want to touch on tonight is personal engagement. And so that is an ambassador ministry, whereby every member of our community is contacted every year. We meet with them, we ask them how they're doing, ask them if they have any concerns about the parish. We thank them for their time that they've offered. If they've offered time in ministry, we thank them for their financial support. And we just connect with them. And it's really important that we're doing that with our parishioners every year. On the right-hand side there, you'll see one page of our ministry directory. This is also included in our stewardship materials, so that as our parishioners are reading through, they can read about all the different ministries, and which will help them determine how they can offer their time and talent back to the church. And then finally, again, short little snippets of a much bigger program. But those are the four foundational steps that my own parish began with as we were had made a decision to change the way we thought about stewardship, change the way we talk about stewardship, because we truly felt that this was a way for us to transform not only our parish, but our parishioners. And so, as Steve and Melpo both mentioned, we have videos available if you're wanting more information. We've got sample documents that I can send to you. Coaching. If anybody wants more information, you are more than welcome to reach out to me. My email address is down there at the bottom. Our OPL website is coming soon, and we'll have lots of resources there. Of course, the Archdiocese website is always a good resource, as well as Bill Marianis's Stewardship Calling website. So I just want to thank you for this opportunity, and I'll turn it back over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Christina. Hopefully I'm off of mute. Yes, I am. Great. Christina, thank you so much. As you could tell, we raced through the three topics, just given the time constraint and trying to be respectful of everyone's time. We try to set aside 75 minutes for these webinars. I tried to get to as many the chats, and Bill, thanks for also pitching in there. But Christina, what Christina really talked about, and you heard Melpo and Steve Tibbs, it really is cultivating a culture of generosity. And, we talked about these three elements of stewardship, of planned giving, of capital campaigns or major gifts. within a parish, and Christina showed the one slide of everything that was done within Assumption there in Seattle, and it's just so powerful and it's so inspiring. So again, look at all these in totality and thinking about how to strengthen that culture generosity within your own parish. I think we try to get to most of the questions I know. So presentation and the recording, and Paul, we're still recording, correct? So hopefully the recording will be excellent. Will be made available on the Metropolis of San Francisco website. And sometimes I know it might be a little hard to navigate, but we're going to send a link directly to the recording to all of you that have registered. And I'm assuming that everyone that's here has registered. We have your email address, of course. That's how you got the Zoom link. You'll get a link to the recording as well as this presentation. And as a follow-up, certainly reach out to any of us. So again, that we can help you get started or strengthen or revitalize activities within your own parish. Very good. If there aren't any questions, because we have gone a few minutes late, Father Jim, if you are still on, I know His Eminence had to go to some other meetings and other commitments, but Father Jim, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
We stopped sharing. It's been, yeah. I'm no longer sharing, correct? Yes.
Yes.
If you can give us a closing prayer, Father Jim, and again, as always, thank you for being a part of this there in New York and joining us on another late evening.
It's a blessing to be with you. A short prayer, since we went very close to time. Through the prayers of Holy Father, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen.
Amen. Thank